Hello everybody, hope we're all doing well. What's up, Call of Duty fans? Are you ready to debate the future of your franchise league? I hope so, because welcome to a video all about the breakdown of those leaks for the franchise league coming in 2020. And speaking of which, apparently some decks were leaked, revealing some information about the future of the league. Now, I must say, as of right now, COD, responses have been made about these decks being leaked. Apparently, some of the information is false. It is not accurate, although we will take it with a grain of salt, and I'll give you guys details that actually were revealed by Decerto about the franchise league coming in 2020. And speaking of that, guys, at the very start of 2020 next year, that being January, is when this franchise league will actually start, running through July, and then a new Call of Duty release will actually take over for the fall as well. So, kind of the first part of these decks revealing that yes, yearly or annual Call of Duty releases will actually be a thing. I don't think many people doubted that would still be in the game itself. Now, I will say one of the most important of the many important points that were apparently leaked by these decks, guys, first of all, a minimum salary. Yes, that's actually going to be $50,000, apparently the minimum salary for players across all the teams out there, which I would say is pretty decent. I do believe the Overwatch minimum salary, they follow along the same lines, I think right around $60,000. So for Call of Duty, notoriously, I wouldn't say notoriously, but well known now, way less viewership, $50K for a minimum salary is pretty decent for starters. Especially if this is true, guys. The other crazy point, I think probably the craziest of all of these leaks out there, if it is true, it says that apparently each roster should be expected to have 7 to upwards of 10 players on their roster, which is pretty crazy when you think about this. Apparently each team will be appointed a general manager and have 7 to 10 players at that minimum of $50K per player. If that minimum does also apply to bench players, we could be looking at quite some money to hold the roster down if you do have the upwards of 5 sub players and 10 total on your roster. When you think about your star players on your best teams as well, pulling at least some of them, 100,000 plus, others 200,000 plus in salary, we're talking about a huge chunk of change on top of your at least 25 million you paid for the spot itself. This is a very expensive investment. I like it though. I think pro players deserve to be paid, but 50K mins plus of course your star players plus the 25 million, any organization of the 8 so far, we're expected to see 12, I believe, for our first year. At least we think as of right now, only 8 have been solidified. That's a giant chunk of change. Now you start to realize why organizations like Evil Geniuses are kind of backing away and actually going towards League of Legends instead. But I am curious what you guys think about all of this stuff as well, so make sure if you do want to, leave a comment down below. I love kind of interacting with you guys, or at least seeing what you say about these kind of things, because these are very debatable points, right? I might say, viewership-wise, is this going to be worth it for a lot of teams? I might say no. You might say yes. In terms of minimum salaries, you guys might say that's too low. That might be too high. I would love to see you guys' reasoning down below as to why you think that the way you guys do. Also, on top of that, guys, some reported figures out there about these league spots. They do intend, apparently, for these league spots to be worth $45 million by the year 2030. So 10 years from now, they expect it to go from about 25 million to about a valuation of 45 million for those franchise spots. On top of that, apparently already locked in $20 million in media rights for the first season, which seems, pretty decent, especially when it comes time for another debate out there, that being the controversy of this M-rated game compared to League of Legends. Of course, a different type of violence, I would say, and also Overwatch, which is a game, I believe, for a 12-year-old age rating. A game like Call of Duty, that's M for mature. So TV broadcast deals and sponsorships and partnerships could be a huge debate out there if they can actually acquire the sponsors to pay for this league. A term, you compare it to games like CSGO, who lack that kind of sponsorship because they are both directly correlated to gun violence, which as of right now, I'm sure you guys are well aware in America, it's a very, very touchy subject. I know a lot of us video game folk, we don't believe in gun violence leading, or video game violence leading to IRL gun violence, but in terms of public persona, it doesn't look good, especially in the terms of talks that Donald Trump and others have brought up recently. And so that's why there's a lot of doubt about actually gaining revenue and sponsors for the league that is directly correlated around a game which is gun violence. But they do also cite with that $20 million in media rights they've apparently already acquired for year 1, which I will give props to where props is due. They also kind of cite Overwatch League. There's a lot of correlation between Overwatch League, what they have done so far with their franchise, and what it seems that Activision or Call of Duty wants to do with theirs, which again, I'm okay with. If it is successful, then all the more for the doubters out there to watch and sit back and say, hey, I guess I was wrong about this. Also, on top of that, though, they do report that apparently Overwatch League Season 1 actually had over $80 million in revenue. So, this could be very promising. I think they're trying to make this sound promising, I'm sure, for a lot of investors who are trying to get into the league, or maybe on the whim of getting into the league. Now, I think the craziest of all the things that are apparently leaked in these decks, guys, is the very last point, which is in the future, they apparently want to hold 28 teams in the franchise CWL, CDL, or CGL, whatever it does end up being called. We have no idea right now. 28 teams. I think one of the most debatable points out there. I was talking to Misery and Sweeper, some other guys in our Discord about this, and I think it's a great talking point because you look at other franchise leagues who don't have those number of teams even yet. I don't even think Overwatch is breaking those numbers. And in terms of, yes, a worldwide basis, if Call of Duty does take off, can they actually have a resurgence? I do think so. This has really got me back in, especially when it comes to Modern Warfare as well. I think Call of Duty can make a resurgence. We saw 150K plus viewers for a large portion of those grand finals, winner finals, and losers finals for our last COD champs, which is pretty good in terms of Call of Duty viewership. Can it grow though worldwide? I think there is that room to grow. In other words though, 28 teams of 7 to 10 players, is there enough talent to fill that at 50K minimum salaries? So obviously 28 teams is a far down the line venture for these guys, especially when you think about it. Throughout their venture so far, they've only signed 8 of the 12 required apparently for the first initial season. So we'll see if 28 is even achievable, not only by player standpoints, but by organizations out there who can afford, especially when you think down the line, right? They evaluate these spots to apparently in 10 years be worth $45 million. If teams are going to try and get in there for 28 teams, how many teams are going to be paying $30+ million, or how many organizations can actually afford to pay that in the future? We're going to wait to see on that. So many big leaks around this, guys. All I got to say is I am super excited for this. This past weekend, COD Champs just got me super hyped to cover this kind of news, the drama around the scene on top of that, and I do think it has potential to be a resurgence overall for Call of Duty, but there's just so many talking points, so many things this does rely on: the player base, the organizational base, which organizations actually land spots for the first season. The first season will be a tell-all for the future of Call of Duty, and alongside all of that, you got to be, of course, recognizing the fact that Modern Warfare has to live up to a lot of hype on top of that. As always, my name is Jake. I hope you guys all enjoy. Feel free to leave your thoughts down below. Breaking down esports news here every single day. Until next time, guys, drink coffee. I'll see you soon.